What is up, everybody? It's Scott from the Fantasy Boutique, back for another edition of Under Par. This episode of Under Par, we're going to recap last week's event, the Memorial. Dig into this week's event, the FedEx St. Jude Classic. Last week, we saw Bryson DeChambeau defeat Benny On and Kyle Stanley in a playoff to capture his second career tour victory. Though we were unable to get out a video or a pod last week, it was an interesting week for me personally, from the DFS perspective. At the top, I went almost completely Justin Rose and Justin Thomas, which paid off as they finished 6th and 8th. Overall, I returned almost 3-time return on investment, which had the potential to be way higher. I entered the weekend with 3 lines inside the top 20 on one of the large DK GPPs, but was hurt by some disappointing third rounds by Bubba Watson, Patrick Reed, Chesson Hadley. Overall, at the end of the week, I had 7 of the top 12 golfers on the leaderboard in my core of at least 30%. Bryson DeChambeau, Benny On, Kyle Stanley, Peter Uihlein, Joaquin Niemann, Justin Rose, and Justin Thomas. Pretty much the only one that I didn't hit on was Patrick Cantlay. I didn't have him in my core or any of my lines. I just didn't have the right combination of golfers to really take anything down at the top of those big GPPs. I was extremely high on Charles Schwartzel. He was the only guy in my core that missed the cut. I had one other golfer that I had very minimum exposure to that missed the cut as well. Also had Adam Hadwin, in 1 or 2 lines, but he ended up MDFing after the 3rd round. So overall, it was a good week, not quite what I had hoped for after Friday, but winning money on DFS is winning money, so I can't complain to that. On to this week. It's an interesting week, to say the least. It's the week before a major with U.S. Open at Shinnecock next week. So obviously the talent level in the field is going to be a little bit subpar. You have your few guys that notoriously, play the week before the majors, but overall it's a pretty crappy field. In addition, we had U.S. Open sectional qualifying yesterday at 10 locations across the U.S., in addition to Japan and England. If my math was correct, I think there's 18 golfers that are in the field this week that qualified yesterday for the U.S. Open, and then there's additional 3 that are alternates. So take that into consideration. Also into consideration, guys that are already in the field for the U.S. Open next week that are actually playing this week. If they get off to any type of terrible start, whether it's Thursday or early Friday, they might just pack it in, withdraw. We've seen that a couple years ago. Dustin Johnson withdrew here with an, quote, illness, and then he showed up 24 hours later at Chambers Bay, where the U.S. Open was being held, and had a practice round. Among those that have already withdrawn that were originally in the field, J.J. Spawn, Bo Hostler did it yesterday. Today it was Elliott Snyder-Jans, Russell Knox, Patrick Rogers, Keegan Bradley, not surprisingly Adam Scott, who, if he did play this week, was going to be going on, I think it was 6 straight weeks of playing golf. He made mention yesterday that he needed a break. So to all those guys, we thank you. Didn't want to have the issue of going into Thursday's opening round and, with the thought of these guys withdrawing, hanging over our heads, whether we should put them in our lineups or not. But so we thank those guys. On to this week. The course this week for the FedEx St. Jude Classic is the TPC Southwind. Course is located in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a par 70 course that measures 7,244 yards. The course is extremely hard, as it's ranked on average 11th or 12th on tour over the last 2, 5, and 10-year spans. Course has a ton of water on it. Golfers have actually found the water more on this course than any course on tour. In fact, it's not even close. There's something like more than 1,000 balls over the last, I don't know how many years it's been, have been in the water compared to TPC Sawgrass, which everybody thinks is, like a graveyard for golf balls in the water. But this course is actually, a lot harder than that one as far as when it comes to playing with water. Daniel Berger's the defending champion as he's won both the title in 2016 and 2017. Although he is not in my picks this week, he's very much in play just for that fact. It's going to be hot this weekend, which is definitely not a good thing for this course. Besides the heat, the Memphis area hasn't gotten any rain over the last month or so. I think they've gotten like 0.3 of an inch in the last month. So the fairways are probably going to be baked, running fast. The greens should be drying fast. What does all this mean? Dry, fast fairways. It's going to be tough to find the fairways on some of the hardest to hit fairways on tour. The driving accuracy is like 6 or 7% lower here than the tour average. The narrow fairways obviously aren't really a hindrance to using the driver, as the average driving distance is well over tour average yearly here. I think the average is over 290 yards on average here. You couple the tough to hit fairways, and then you have small, hard to hit Bermuda greens. They're just a tad over 5,400 square feet. They'll probably roll somewhere 12, maybe a little bit higher on the stimp meter. The average green in regulation over the years here is 56%, which is like 8 to 10% lower than the tour average. So, trying to find guys that are good in greens in regulation or have really good around the green game. Key stats. I'm the type of person that takes into consideration strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained putting, birdie or better percentage, bogey avoidance, and scoring average each week. In addition to those, for this week, I'm looking at strokes gained ball striking. This is a second shot course, as are most TPC courses. Good drive percentage, which factors in accuracy and or greens in regulation. Scrambling with the small greens, the water. Chances are at some point during the week you're going to find yourself in trouble and you're going to have to get up and down to save par. Average proximity, and as well as it being a par 70 course, par 4 scoring and or par 4 birdie or better percentage. Now onto my picks this week. For those not familiar, my pick segment, I have 4 golfers that make up part of my player pool for DFS construction on FanDuel and Draftkings. If you want a larger glimpse into my core, head over to dfsboutique.com, sign up for our PGA package. I also give 4 value plays, which are guys that I like that are in the low 9K or below range on FanDuel and mid 7K and below on DraftKings. The first golfer in my core is Brooks Koepka. He's 12,400 on FanDuel, 11,100 on DraftKings. Odds to win the tournament at 9-1. Actually, the second highest odds in the tournament behind Dustin Johnson, who's 7-1. You could probably go a few different ways to the top, as I think this might be a stars and scrubs type of week. Typically, that hasn't really been the prudent move this year for DFS, purposes or, the approach to building lineups. We've seen a large percentage of GPPs and GPP takedowns this year that have had some variation of a balanced lineup approach. My personal preference at the top this week is Koepka and Henrik Stenson, who I'll talk about shortly. Koepka's playing great golf since coming back from his wrist injury that sidelined him for much of the beginning of the 2018 season. He finished 42nd a couple weeks ago at the Wells Fargo in his first event back, 11th at the Players, and 2 weeks ago he was second at the Fort Worth Invitational. There's a chance that he's looking ahead to the U.S. Open. He's the defending champion. Side note, I love him as well. Next week, the reason I'm not worried about him looking ahead is he has pretty good course history here at TPC Southwind. He finished 19th in his debut in 2014. He followed it up with a third in 2015. He was a runner-up in 2016, and then he had a sort of disappointing 37th last year. Koepka's he's the total package. He's long off the tee. He can putt. He scores on the par fours and par fives. He doesn't make a ton of bogeys. Stats for him, compared to the field, he is third par four scoring, fourth par four birdie or better percentage. He's fifth in birdie or better percentage, ninth in scrambling, as well as bogey avoidance, and he's 14th in scoring average. Second golfer is Henrik Stenson. He's 12,200 on FanDuel, 10,400 on Draftkings. Odds to win a tournament at 16-1. When you see a course that is tough to hit fairways, and Stenson's in the field, it's almost an automatic play for me. It means he's just going to pull out his trusty 3-wood for the bulk of the round. He's going to pound that thing. It's just going to go long and straight. He hits that thing probably just as far as many other hitters on tour hit their drivers. He's going to just put it right in the middle of the fairway. It's partly the reason why he leads the tour in good drive percentage this year. He's got top 25 finishes in his last 5 solo events, and he only has 1 missed cut on the season since coming over from the European Tour, and that was the first event, the Valspar, all the way back in March. Stenson hasn't played here in 2012, but he finished 13th. And I think the reason why he's playing here is the PGA Tour implemented a rule at the beginning of the 2016-2017 season, which required golfers that had less than 25 official events the year before to add a new event to their schedule each season. So that's why I think that he is showing up here. So take that for what it's worth. So stats for Stenson, he's first, as I mentioned, in the field, good drive percentage. First in bogey avoidance, first in par 4 scoring. He's second in strokes gained ball striking, as well as scoring average. He's fourth in strokes gained approach. He's fifth in scrambling, sixth in strokes gained tee to green, seventh in par or birdie or better percentage. He's eighth in par 4 birdie or better percentage. He's ninth in strokes gained off the tee, 12th in average proximity, and 20th in strokes gained putting. So as you can see, he fills up the stat sheet. Obvious reason why he's one of the higher priced guys in the tournament. But like I said, I like him this week. He's also probably potential play next week for me at the at the U.S. Open. Typically, you see really high rough there. It's a necessity to find the fairway. So he's probably going to be in play for me next week. Third golfer is Joaquin Niemann. He's 10,200 on FanDuel, 8,900 on DraftKings. Odds to win a tournament at 40-1. Now, I'll be the first to admit I'm a little hesitant to this pick. We're going to continue to ride the hot streak that Niemann's on. The reason I'm a little hesitant is just this is his 4th straight start. I would have been even more apprehensive. He played yesterday in the U.S. Open sectional qualifying to try to qualify for the U.S. Open, but he only played 18 holes in the Columbus qualifier and then withdrew once he realized he didn't have a shot. You'll see a lot of these guys, and if you're not familiar with the U.S. Open sectional qualifying, like I said, it was held yesterday. They play 36 holes in one day. So if you're coming off of last weekend's tournament, you go into Monday, you play 36 holes to try to qualify there. Then you have to travel to this week's event, and then which starts Thursday. It's a lot of golf playing in that 4 to 5 day span. So chance you're going to be tired, but he's 19 years old. He pulled out after 18 holes, so I'm not really worried too much. The 19-year-old Chilean rookie he's coming in off the 7th place finish at the Fort Worth, 6th place finish last week, the Memorial. It was his 3rd top 10 finish in 5 events since turning pro right after the Masters. The 6th place finish at the Memorial earned him special temporary membership status on tour for the rest of the year. Basically what that means is he gets to make an unlimited number of sponsor exemptions for the rest of the year. With that, he only needs 90 more FedEx points in those however many events he decides to play to earn his PGA Tour card for next year. I think that's enough to fire him up this week. I think it's enough to fire him up, for the rest of the year. He's got 275 points in those 3 events. So it's really not going to take him much but one high finish or a couple, top 25 finishes to reach those 90 points. The kid over the last 5 tournaments is number 1 in the field, strokes gained ball striking. He's also inside the top 20 for strokes gained against the field, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach, greens in regulation, and proximity. Stats on the year compared to the field, he is first in strokes gained approach as well as strokes gained ball striking. He's third in scoring average, fourth in strokes gained tee to green, as well as birdie or better percentage. He's 7th in par 4 birdie or better percentage. He's 8th in strokes gained off the tee as well as proximity. He's 12th in par 4 scoring, and he's 24th in strokes gained putting and bogey avoidance. The 4th golfer in my core is Luke List. He's 10,300 on FanDuel, 8,300 on Draftkings. Odds to win the tournament at 50-1. I think List is about to go on another run. He had a run from the end of January, I think, to the middle of April where he had top 25 or right around there in 8 of those 9 events. Since then, he's missed 2 of 4 cuts. The cuts he made were a T9 at the Wells Fargo and a T37 at the Memorial last week. He seems to play well in these narrower, tough courses this year. He's got an 8th place finish here last year, and he has a 50th place finish in his debut in 2016. Over his last 5 tournaments, which for List equals 10 rounds. He's top 20 in the field, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained off the tee, and strokes gained ball striking. And he's top 25 in the field in par 4 scoring and strokes gained on par 4. For the season compared to the field, List is 2nd in the field, strokes gained tee to green, and 3rd, strokes gained off the tee. He's 8th in birdie or better percentage and scoring average. He's 9th in strokes gained ball striking, 13th in par 4 scoring, 18th bogey avoidance, and he's 25th in par 4 birdie or better percentage. Next 4 golfers are my value plays. Once again, these are golfers that are low 9K, mid 7K and below on FanDuel and DraftKings. Guys that I think might get overlooked. They have good course history, or they're just coming in on a little bit of a run. The first golfer is Corey Connors. He's 9,300 on FanDuel, 7,600 on DraftKings. Odds to win the tournament at 125-1. Connors is coming in a little bit of a run. He's made the cut in his last 4 events, with the most recent being a 8th place finish a couple weeks ago at the Fort Worth Invitational. Average finishing position in those 4 events is 32nd place. He's only missed 4 cuts on the year in 19 events, and given the showing that he showed earlier in the season at the Valspar, should be able to take advantage of the lesser quality field here, which it seems to be getting worse by the moment with golfers withdrawing. He's 14th in the field, strokes gained ball striking, 15th birdie or better, and 20th strokes gained approach over the last 5 tournaments, which for Connors is 12 rounds. Stats for Connor: he is 16th in the field, strokes gained ball striking, 21st strokes gained off the tee, 22nd strokes gained tee to green versus the field. The second value golfer is Ben Crane. He is 9,100 on FanDuel, 7,400 on DraftKings. Odds to win the tournament at 125-1. Ben Crane's the 2014 winner of the FedEx St. Jude Classic. Like Connors, he's coming in on a little bit of a roll. He's made the cut in 7 straight events, with his most recent being an 8th place finish at the Fort Worth Invitational, which just happens to be his best finish of the year. Crane's only missed 1 cut in 9 events on this season, if you take away the fall portion of the swing season. He's 11 for 11 in cuts made at this event, which obviously means that he likes the course. In those 11 made cuts, he's got 6 top 25s. I'll sign up for a top 25 finish with a little bit higher upside all day for a low 9K FanDuel, mid 7K play on DraftKings. He's been solid across the board over the last 5 tournaments. with the exception of strokes gained off the tee. I mean, he actually surprisingly leads this field in par 4 scoring over that time frame, which when you consider Dustin Johnson, Henrik Stenson, Brooks Koepka, it's pretty remarkable that, a guy like Ben Crane is actually leading in par 4 scoring. Stats for Crane, he is 8th in the field scrambling, 10th in par 4 scoring, 16th stroke gain putting, as well as good drive percentage, and he's 17th in the field for the year in bogey avoidance. The third golfer is Joel Dahman. He is 8,700 on FanDuel, 7,100 on Draftkings, odds to win the tournament at 100-1. Dahman's quietly coming into this event with 3 straight top 25 finishes. It would be a 4th if you included the Zurich team event. Dahman has in fact made the cut in his last 8 events. He's shown a ton of signs of, a ton of consistency in the process. He also has one other top 25 finish in those 8 or 9 events, and that was a 18th place, I don't know what the finish was, but it was back the crossover event at the Corrales Punta Cana event. I think it was the same day or the same weekend as one of the WGC events. Dahman finished 18th here. His only appearance of his career, I think it was a few years ago. He's 10th in the field, par 4 scoring, 11th in the field, strokes gained tee to green, 13th strokes gained ball striking, and 15th strokes gained approach over the last 5 tournaments. So as you can see, the strokes gained, metrics as well as his ball striking have been really on point over the last 5 tournaments. Stats for the year, he is 11th in the field, par 4 scoring, 16th in scrambling, 22nd in bogey avoidance, and he's 23rd in good drive percentage. The 4th and final golfer is Matt Jones. He's 8,300 on FanDuel, 6,900 on DraftKings, odds to win the tournament at a 110-1. He's coming into the St. Jude Classic off a 13th finish a few weeks ago at the Byron Nelson Classic, which was his best finish of the year. Overall, it's been a bit of a rough year for Jones. He's making just over half of his cuts, 7 cuts made in 13 events. But he has made the cut in 4 of his last 5 events, and he did qualify for the U.S. Open yesterday. Jones is in play for me because he has really good course history here recently. Prior to 2015, he missed the cut in all 3 appearances that he's made. Since 2015, he's got 2 top 20 finishes. Out of the 3 appearances, he's got an 18th, a 26th, and the 3rd, which equates to an average finishing position of 15th. Over his last 10 tournaments, Jones is ranked inside the top 25 in the field. Strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained around the green, greens in regulation, birdie or better percentage, par 3 scoring and par 5 scoring. If you actually look at the last 5 tournaments, which for Jones is really only 1 tournament, he actually leads the field in strokes gained around the green and strokes gained scrambling, I do believe. For the season or for the field compared to the rest of the golfers, Jones is 14th in the field, par 4 birdie or better percentage. He's 17th in birdie or better percentage, and he is 24th in strokes gained tee to green. Once again, my core plays this week: Brooks Koepka, Henrik Stenson, Joaquin Niemann, Luke List. My value plays: Corey Connors, Ben Crane, Joel Dahman, Matt Jones. Be sure to head over to dfsboutique.com, sign up for our PGA package. Some of the features offered are a weekly cheat sheet, cash and GPP rankings, odds versus pricing, course and current form sheets, player write-up, which roughly is 30 to 40 golfers. It might be a little less this week just because of the amount of withdrawals. Give Fantasy Boutique YouTube page a like to get notified of any and all new Under Par segments. If you're on Twitter, give me a follow, Boutique PGA, as well as the Fantasy Boutique. A follow, DFS Boutique. That's all for this week. I'll be back next week as we get ready for the second major of the year, the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills in Long Island, New York. Star-studded field like most majors. You got another chance for some lucky person to win $1 million in the DK Millie Maker if you're lucky enough to beat like 205,000 other entries. Until then, let's shoot under par this week. Let's make it a profitable week with a bunch of green in our bank account.